Everybody. If you want to grab a seat, I know I'm all the way up here, in part because we're still recording these so that our friends who are here at home, who decided to sleep in a little bit this morning, can still see a version. So good morning. Welcome to our Development Services Forum. I can kind of see you, Andy, behind the pole in the back. Yeah, right. Exactly. So this morning will be a relatively quick forum. Mostly it's meant as a meet and greet, but also an opportunity for us to do a quick recap of what we've been up to over the course of this year. And some folks may trickle in who had RSVP'd over the course of the next couple of minutes, so we'll just make room for them, leave some donuts, let them get coffee when they come in. So couple of things today. The welcome is happening right now. Then we'll talk about a little bit of a peek ahead, what's new in 2019 for all of us, as well as a quick recap of where some of the projects that we brought to the forum over the course of this year are currently in their development, because we brought them to you for feedback. We wanted to give you some updates. Then we'll just give you an update on the future of both the forum and the blueprint for success, what we expect coming up, and then we'll give some time to eat donuts and hang out. Morning. Yeah, just in time for the donuts and hangout. All right. So a question for the group is, what's new from all of our perspectives in 2019? What are we looking ahead to? I'll start with something, which is that the Economic Development Strategic Plan is something that we've been working on really for the past 2 years. It was initially one of Council's goals starting in winter of 2017. And knock on wood, we're bringing it for final adoption by Council at the December 18th meeting, and then we'll move forward with an implementation plan. So that's something that's on my agenda for 2019, as well as our Startup in Residence program, as we decide which project we'll move forward with on that. That's something else that I'm thinking about for 2019. Staff and visitors, everybody want to just shout out something that you have on your mind heading into 2019? West Downtown, North Downtown adoption. All right. And we have some people here who can give a little bit more of an update on where those stand. Other things happening in 2019? Design Review Guidelines update. Can you tell us more about that?
We have a citywide set of design review guidelines that were adopted in 1996, and so we got direction from City Council to bring forward an update in September. And so we're forming working group, and we'll have some opportunities for public engagement during that process.
All right. I'm going to say one per table, but that puts Jessica in a tough position. What's happening in 2019 over here?
PBID transportation plan.
Oh, yeah. Multimodal plan for the Shadelands PBID. So that's been ongoing, and the goal is to finish up with that plan next year, and then put forth an actual action plan so that there will be some streetscape improvements all throughout the Shadelands Business Park. Anything else? 2019? Each table's on it. West Downtown, you want?
So the plan itself and the related general plan amendments were adopted September of this year. The zoning ordinance amendments, though, we're going through some additional analysis at the request of council, because some concern about how the new proposed zoning will interact with the relatively new state laws regarding density bonuses for affordable housing. So we're working that out, and we're actually going to council next week for a study session, and then hopefully very early next year we'll have the revised zoning ordinance amendments ready to be adopted.
Yeah, lots of construction, yeah. Anything from you, Jess?
I don't know about new, but there's a lot of construction, so continued improvements throughout the city and inspections. There's a lot of plan review that's still taking place. And then other than that, I could say that specific to our equipment here on the second floor, looking in the electronic direction. We're trying to roll into phase 2 for Acela, which will allow, hopefully, in 2019, some over-the-counter online permitting. So we're looking really forward to that.
Thank you. Over-the-counter online permitting. Very exciting. Okay.
So Reed he goaded me into having to talk, so I'm going to talk. No, but I want to make an announcement. We actually found out from the American Planning Association that the upcoming national conference in April will be featuring a panel discussion of the successful blueprint for success, the success we've had, and we will be discussing how we have made changes to process improvements, business improvements, etc. So for those of you who might have been thinking about attending the conference, there's now a Walnut Creek reason to attend. It's in April the 13th through the 16th, so that was news that just came through.
So our commercial express review process has been in place for about a year now. It's been very successful, and we've had, I can't remember, about 80 over-the-counter permits that have been issued through that process. Unfortunately, right now, the fire district, who we were partnering with to get them to do an over-the-counter review, and then they could come in, the applicant could come in and get their over-the-counter permit from us. They're in between fire marshals right now, and so they have said we can't do over-the-counter review. It takes about 3 weeks for them to review projects, so that's going to delay somewhat this over-the-counter process. We can still do it, but we're telling applicants when they come in, they need to get their plans in early to the fire district and get their approvals from them, such that they can come to us and get it within the day. So.
Yeah, that's something that we're hoping to, as the new marshal comes in, we're trying to be in contact with them so that we can do what we can to reinstate the over-the-counter review where possible. But that's another update. Anything else from the room? The question was, do we know what's going on with the new fire marshal?
So the fire marshal left went to the county of San Mateo. And so right now, Louis Brouchard, who was promoted to a fire captain, is the interim fire marshal, and they're in the process of looking for a new fire marshal. So hopefully the first quarter of next year, they'll have somebody on board. But
So in the meantime, we should
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
Louis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Good updates. Thanks, everybody. And the other piece that we wanted to give you specific updates on we already got the West Downtown specific plan update. Janine, could you give us a quick summary of what's up with North Downtown at the moment?
So as Andy identified, we're working through the how the interplay of state density bonus will interact with our community benefits program and new zoning. So once that goes through, what we're planning is to bring the specific plan and EIR to Planning Commission in February, and then hopefully move through a quick round of meetings and get through adoption in ideally end of March.
Okay, rethinking mobility. Andy, can I put you on the spot for this one? Sure. Where is it at in the process? That's really all it.
So just really quick, Rethinking Mobility is a more memorable name for the Transportation Demand Management Strategic Plan. And by simply saying that, I think you probably know why we're calling it Rethinking Mobility. But it's basically, it is, like I mentioned, it's a strategic plan to basically looking at our transportation network and various changes that are going on right now in terms of technology and transportation, and also rethinking possibly our parking requirements and any number of things basically related to getting around and implementing an actual transportation demand management program for the city. Right now, we're kind of in the early public outreach. Ozzy Arce is heading up the project, and we've already been to the Planning Commission and the Transportation Commission, and is planning on going to the City Council. Is it next week? I'm sure. Yeah, for basically an introduction and some initial feedback from the council, and the majority of the project will be happening next year, and do expect to have it wrapped up by next year.
And on community benefits, as well as housing, anything else you want to summarize, Ethan, from the planning side?
That was an O, not a no. A no. Yeah, happy. So the community benefits program, it's been alluded to. Janine just mentioned a moment ago. It's essentially there are opportunities for either height or FAR bonuses or increases in both the West Downtown and North Downtown plan areas, and the realization of those increases is up for consideration by council through a mechanism where we're looking at a plan development permit. Essentially, it's the discretion of the council to negotiate with developers. And I believe we've actually had discussions on this topic at both the North Downtown specific plan meetings in the past, perhaps even at this Development Services Forum. The bottom line is that the community benefits program is something that is at the forefront of the council's mind. It's part of this discussion for next Tuesday, the consideration of how state density bonus would interact with and have an impact upon that program. And ultimately, as council indicated when we adopted the West Downtown plan, and we're looking to adopt North Downtown, of course, in March, within 6 months of adoption of the West Downtown thereabout, so essentially this coming spring, we're looking to have a community benefits program adopted by council by resolution to allow for that process to occur, so that developers looking for added bonuses, whether it be FAR increase or height increase within those plan areas, would have some clarity on the process. I think that's enough for now. Go ahead.
Yeah, anything else you want to?
Ethan, is there a staff report for that yet? Is there a staff report for the meeting next week where you're talking about the new PD process?
There is a staff report that is dedicated to the analysis of the interplay between zoning as proposed and state density bonus law. And that's the extent of it, because we're essentially seeking to ask a very simple question of council. How would you like the zoning to be written? And what we mean by that is, how are we calculating base density? I won't get into the weeds with anyone here, because we can do it offline if you like, but the bottom line is the staff report is available online. It does a very good job. Well, actually, it's going to be available on Friday. Friday at 2 o'clock. We typically post, well, we do post every Friday before a meeting. This Friday, Friday afternoon, it will be available. It's a pretty straightforward, for a relatively complex subject matter. We did our best to simplify, to boil it down to essentially that question of, how does council want to write the zoning ordinance when we talk about determining base density for purposes of state density bonus law, and also, again, this community benefits question. It's all laid out pretty succinctly. I think Sandy wants to.
So I just wanted to add that the zoning ordinance currently is written such that community benefits density would be permitted through plan development permit. That's a discretionary permit with the council. So that's not changing with this proposal. It's just how we determine base density under state density bonus law. Yeah. Oh, yes. So our department did a department-wide SMART goal, which is, I always forget what the acronym means for SMART, but it's yeah. Yeah, right. So the SMART goal was to take a project that has already been approved, which was 1500 Mount Diablo, and essentially try to run it completely through a digital process. And of course, we don't have those processes in place, but the individual SMART goals of the department was to look in to how other cities process applications digitally. So we completed that SMART goal, and we did with several of my staff members, my goal was to do that, to run it through theoretical processes, and we actually think we have what we would like to go forward with in the end, which is a product called, I always forget the name. What's it? No, not PlanGrid. It was the other one. Project Docs, which is a system that actually can integrate with Acela or talks to Acela, but really can essentially take in plans digitally. We can do plan review. We can actually take it through the discretionary process with this, and all the way through building permit processes, and then plan checking through that. And then we would, once the permit was issued, then we would upload the plans to PlanGrid. No, is that it? PlanGrid? Yeah. And that's where the contractors and the inspectors on site can actually look at the plans and do inspections and do change orders and things. So, yeah, so it's kind of exciting. Of course, it won't happen for a while, but it's possible.
Right, exactly. This is the first step in a probably 1 to 2 year process of us actually seeing, okay, is it possible for us to move more digitally? And this was driven by a couple of things we learned from all of you, which is basically that printing out big sets of plans is expensive and can be cumbersome. It takes time to actually shuttle to and from the counter in different ways, and perhaps there are better ways for us to signal route and allow you to actually go back and forth around changes with our staff. So the goal is, right, yeah.
Does anybody know if that means that you can, you know, basically have a markup or edit by a plan reviewer, and then they'll put their signature on it, whatever, and say, okay, this is the quick fix. It's online, then it can be, okay, good, that'd be great.
Yeah. So ultimately, yes, but like they said, it's going to be probably a 1 to 2 year process. That will be towards the end of the process. Right now, I can see that there's not a specific fix for digital or electronic signature portion, so it's very likely that you'll be able to remedy it temporarily, but we will still need that hard copy brought into the office. So eventually, but for right now, they're still asking. So let me just be really specific. So for example, on a set of plans right now, they are currently on some larger projects starting to use PlanGrid. And so we're able to communicate electronically currently, but even over the next year, you would want to anticipate bringing in a hard set of copy with those changes that you received electronically from the plan check engineer. Yeah, so you'll still have a field copy, and we'll have our office copy, and it'll be stamped up and signed accordingly, but we'll still need that paper document. They'll use PlanGrid, which will reflect those changes also, but we'll still track it with paper for the time. Both of those things will take place. So, yeah. So in order to get those changes that you want implemented, you're right. There would be basically a copy, or if you're talking about electronically, then they would make the markups electronically, but then a physical hard copy will still need to come in with those markups. Does that answer your question? Right, so just specific to a revision alone. You wouldn't have to resubmit the plan in its entirety, if that answers. Okay.
Yeah, so likely we'll be kind of straddling both worlds as we slowly move forward. There will be a lot of dialogue, a lot of testing with you guys out in the field, and that was our intent, was figure it out internally, and it was actually really impressive to watch a lot of the staff members who were in the room. We worked closely with engineering as well. The level of detail that we got down to, where it truly was like, how could we get the county clerk to that section to work with this? How might we be able to handle payment? How might we be able to handle electronic signatures? How could we do digital stamps? Every part of this process that right now really is quite paper-based, starting to think about how we could take the next step forward. So more to come on that, but that's been a big project behind the scenes here in CED and engineering. Any other plan updates that, or kind of updates that we want to share here? Greg, I was wondering if maybe I could put you on the spot about just cannabis and where that's at currently.
Yeah, actually, the ordinance was passed in August and September for the fees. We had an application process that started in October and ended on November 19th. We got 5 applications for delivery-only medicinal marijuana businesses. We're currently in that 30-day review period where staff's reviewing those applications for completeness and eligibility from sensitive uses. The qualified applications will essentially be entered into a lottery, which has been targeted for January 14th. The first 2 selected will be offered the opportunity to seek a conditional use permit from our Planning Commission. So we're working through it.
All right. So with that, a quick update on the future of the Blueprint and the Forum. So first of all, kind of a recap. This was our first year of the Forum, which was last year, where most of the time was spent bringing in the individual outside agencies, and then a couple of bigger topical discussions around things like parking and transportation, technology tools. Last year, or this year rather, we started with a kind of kickoff meet and greet. In March, we brought the representatives from Design Review Commission and Planning Commission to meet the Forum. In April, we actually brought as many agencies as we could get into one room and had them all actually update while they were here. In May, we did strategic and specific plan updates as kind of a broad overview. And then we continued through the course of the year with primarily opportunities for in-depth feedback. So we came with the Economic Development Strategic Plan. That was twice. We brought the community benefits discussion and kind of opened that up. We had some more updates on the specific plans. Andy had mentioned his transportation demand management, that rethinking mobility. And again, we did do some interactive questions about technology tools. And we actually last month, for the first time, did an internal one where we didn't open it up to the public, but we actually had members of outside agencies come in about this goal of doing an all digital plan check to say, where are you guys on digital? And here's where we think we're going. How can we coordinate so that if we moved with one tool, hopefully some of our neighbors and our agencies will move with the same tool. So we actually can streamline the process a little bit more for all of you as we go digital, as opposed to having you have to do different things at all of these different places. The answer in large part was that most outside agencies are actually behind where we are currently. So they are looking to what Walnut Creek is doing. We're opening up some of our trainings to them, but they could use a little more outside pressure, let's say friendly pressure, if this is something that's important to the development community, because right now they're not necessarily hearing it from as many areas, and that's something that really their kind of boards and leaders would want to hear before they make those investments. So that's a little bit of what we learned from doing that. We also have continued to record these meetings, so they are available, and that is why we're standing up here with a microphone right now. So thank you for your patience with the AV side of things, and thank you to our video team here at the city for doing that. But before I kind of move off of this topic, I did want to open it up for suggestions, thoughts on what we'd like to see from the forum in the coming year. I was mentioning to Deb earlier that one of the things that Palo Alto had told us was they moved from monthly to quarterly over time because they felt like it was better to have more people in the room and a kind of heavier agenda for a longer period of time, quarterly rather than once a month. We also heard that sometimes it can be helpful to have monthly for people to meet and greet with each other. Does anyone in the room have thoughts about that that you'd like to share as we think about next year?
There's just one topic on fees. You know, when we're doing performas, having a streamlined method of calculating fees, and also because you can't go to any one department here. I mean, you have to go to multiple departments. Let's put it this way, to try to aggregate all the different types of fees that there are, and then also to have a library of the fees that have been charged from the planning submittal all the way through the final building permit for example projects in the town. That's information that could easily come out of the accounting department here at the city and be available for the public to know what's going on there and help in associating, commercial projects, residential projects, and whatnot for newer projects, and getting a sense of how those fees relate to your pro forma.
Great suggestion. Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to see? Yeah.
First of all, I think this is great. I've been here a handful of times, and whether you do it quarterly or monthly, it, for me personally, has to do with my schedule. So I come as many times as I can. So monthly is great. And I think if one of the goals is communication, transparency, building the relationships and getting feedback, I think you've done that. I think I got to commend you guys. One of the things that with groups like this that I think is important, and I'm speaking from the development community side, is results. Once you start to see results, or people start hearing that there's results, this room will be full. And it takes years and years for that to happen. And I'm speaking from results from a developer's side. So obviously, clearly, from your agenda, there's results. You guys are doing things and accomplishing things from the city's side. I don't know how you aggregate that information, and I'm looking at the utilities, for example, and the agency side. I can tell, and this forum's not going to solve it. It's not your issue. But the agency relationships, the agency results have declined significantly every single year. In my perspective, PG&E can say they're going to have an 8-week and an 8-point program and a this and that, and they're almost dismantled. They can't even perform. Contra Costa Water District, Central San. That's what we're seeing in the real world, is everybody going, have you ever seen a water meter get there at this time? No, it's never going to show up. So I just think it would be an interesting thing looking forward if you could say, here are some of the results, or we called the agencies and said, these people want to see results. Can you come here and tell us how we're going to see results, not this is your 10-point plan and how not to file for bankruptcy. So I think that would be a nice goal in the future, because you are doing a wonderful thing here. I think this is amazing forum, and that would be something I'd like to see. So, and however we can participate.
Great idea. So part of what I'm hearing there is maybe move from the show and tell agency version, which we've had in the past, in part because we wanted to kind of familiarize them and give an opportunity for dialogue, to maybe a more specific project-based opportunity for people to check in, see how things are going, and have the city kind of help them facilitate that process.
Yeah. Or even, it looks like we have at least 3 developers in here. I don't know. I know my staff and my group would be willing to go, here are the top 10 things that we would like answered by PG&E when they show up, so they're not wasting their time. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And it's not meant to be a cascade of, but we're here to, solve problems. So that may be helpful if you could get that participation.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else, or, yeah?
So one of the things that we're going to be coming back to the Development Services Forum on is developing our blueprint for Success Phase 2. And so we're going to be bringing forward, as the Economic Development Strategic Plan gets finalized, we're expecting that a lot of the initiatives would fold into our blueprint Phase 2, but there are, we'd like to get feedback from the development community on other aspects of the development processes that they would like to see us work on as initiatives for Phase 2. So.
Great, and thank you for bringing that up. I actually was meaning to talk about that. So the Blueprint for Success, as many of you know, was a 60-plus odd set of suggestions that came out of a lot of meetings with community members, with staff, that was all about basically continuous improvement. How do we improve along 5 axes, so kind of a shared mission vision, so actually working as a team was number 1, communications, technology improvements, customer service, and then business process improvements. So that was about a year and a half. It was meant as a year and a half long, 18-month document. that got continuously refined over that time. Now we're kind of winding that one down and looking at, let's create a new one. Some items will be carryovers, but some items will be entirely new or different focuses than we've had in the past, and that's what Sandy is referring to when she says we'll bring that back for soliciting some of the ideas.
Just at, you know, a higher level, it's really just a function of expediting the process and streamlining the process. So I don't, and you know, maybe when you go to 2.0, we can talk about specifics and things that might be able to be done, but the City of Walnut Creek does a great job, and sometimes it's viewed as being a little too great. They get a little too down into the weeds, and so the big issue is our consultants, you know, saying, well, do they want to design it or should we design it? Because then the consultant has to stamp it ultimately. So that's just an ongoing issue, and I know you guys are working on it, but any help in that regard would be great. I always thought that, you know, with the level of comments that you get on your plans, gosh, this is going to be a breeze during inspections because they've made the plan so perfect, but that's not the case.
Just to quickly add to that, you know, oftentimes you get a set of, you know, maybe you get 2 pages of comments in the first round, but then you wind up with 3 pages in the second round, and that just doesn't make sense. So just trying to get comprehensive comments the first time around so that the pages get less, not more.
Great. So one of the things that we have heard is potentially taking a closer look at the actual content of things like content letters and the actually formation of those and the journey that you go on as part of this next round. So point well taken. Anything else on Blueprint V2? Well, we'll come for questions or with an ask for specific feedback or thoughts on the forum for next year. I really like the pro forma fee-based idea. That's a good topic for us to think about. Okay, well with that, we have a very urgent, very important task called meet and greet, eat donuts, drink coffee, and have wonderful holidays. Thank you all so much for coming to all the Development Services Forums this year.